You ever wonder what happens when powerful men think nobody's watching? When they believe the only people in the room who matter look exactly like them? Well, let me tell you about a dinner that exposed everything ugly about corporate America. A night when a young black waitress and a brilliant Japanese CEO showed an entire boardroom what real power looks like. This isn't just another business story. This is about dignity, about respect, about what happens when you underestimate the wrong people. And before we dive deep into this incredible true story, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we're about to witness something extraordinary. It started with snow, heavy, relentless Manhattan snow that turned the city into a blur of white and gray. The kind of weather that makes you grateful for warm buildings and expensive wine. 47 floors above the chaos. Inside the Glass Tower restaurant, the most exclusive dining establishment in all of New York, a dinner was about to begin that would change everything. The restaurant wasn't just a place to eat, it was a statement. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across mahogany tables. The air smelled of truffle oil, aged bourbon, and money. Lots of money. In the private dining room reserved for tonight's meeting, tension hung thick as fog. This wasn't just dinner, this was war disguised as negotiation. A $1.2 billion acquisition deal that would either make history or destroy careers. At one end of the massive oak table sat Richard Sterling, CEO of Valtech Industries. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's yearly rent, the kind of man who'd never heard the word no and meant it. His smile was practiced, his confidence absolute. He was the kind of man who'd never heard the word no and meant it. Beside him, Marcus Webb, the CFO, younger, hungrier, with eyes like a shark circling wounded prey. His expensive watch caught the light as he drummed his fingers impatiently on the table. Together, they represented old-school American corporate power, the kind that steamrolled over anyone who didn't look like them. Across from them sat the woman they believed they were about to conquer. Kimiko Hayashi, founder and CEO of Neurotech Solutions, a Tokyo-based AI company that had revolutionized medical diagnostics. At 45, she'd built an empire from nothing. Her technology could detect diseases years before symptoms appeared. She was worth billions. But tonight in this room, she was being treated like an obstacle. Kimiko sat perfectly still, her dark hair pulled back in an elegant bun. Her navy silk dress was understated but expensive. No flashy jewelry, no makeup meant to impress. She didn't need props. Her presence was enough. She spoke softly to her assistant, David Chen, who sat slightly behind her. Their conversations were brief, in Japanese translated only when absolutely necessary. To Richard and Marcus, her silence was weakness. They saw a foreign woman who didn't understand American business. They were wrong on every count. And then there was Maya Johnson, 22 years old, moving through the room like a shadow. Dark skin, expressive brown eyes, and the kind of grace that comes from years of making yourself invisible. She wasn't supposed to matter. She was just the help. Another invisible black girl serving rich white men. But Maya was watching everything. Every condescending smirk. Every dismissive eye roll. Every poisonous whisper they thought was safe. She understood more than they knew. Much, much more. Maya had been working at the Glass Tower for 8 months, saving every penny for nursing school. She'd grown up in Harlem, raised by her grandmother after her parents died in a car accident when she was 12. Her grandmother, Sarah Johnson, had taught her two things: work hard and never let anyone make you feel small. Tonight, both lessons would be tested. The first course arrived with theatrical precision. Seared foie gras with blackberry reduction. The kind of dish that cost more than Maya made in a week. She served each plate with practiced efficiency, invisible and professional. Richard lifted his wine glass. To partnership, he announced, his voice booming with false warmth. And to bringing cutting-edge technology to American markets where it belongs. The words hung in the air like poison Maya had been breathing her whole life. Maya felt the sting immediately. Where it belongs. As if brilliant technology could only truly succeed under American control. Kimiko raised her glass silently, took a small sip, and set it down. She said something quietly to David in Japanese. Miss Hayashi appreciates the sentiment. David translated neutrally. Marcus leaned toward Richard, not bothering to lower his voice much. Is she always this talkative? Richard chuckled. Cultural differences, I suppose. Some people need time to process American innovation. Maya's hand tightened on the wine bottle she was holding. Cultural differences, as if respect and thoughtfulness were foreign concepts. The conversation continued with Richard dominating every topic. He talked about market penetration, global expansion, synergistic opportunities, big words designed to impress and intimidate. Kimiko listened carefully, responded through David when necessary, but never engaged directly. Look, Marcus finally said, his patience wearing thin, we're offering $1.2 billion for your company. That's generous. More than generous. In this economy, it's practically charity. Charity. Maya almost dropped the water pitcher she was refilling. Kimiko spoke softly to David again. He nodded and turned to the table. Ms. Hayashi would like to review the proposed terms in detail before responding. Richard waved his hand dismissively. The terms are standard. We acquire the technology, absorb key personnel, streamline operations, simple business. But Maya had been watching Kimiko's face during the translation. She'd seen the micro-expression of concern when David mentioned absorb key personnel. She'd noticed how Kimiko's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly at streamline operations. Maya had learned to read faces years ago. Growing up Black in America taught you to watch for danger in a smile, to hear threats wrapped in polite words. And right now, every instinct she had was screaming that something was wrong. The second course arrived, lobster bisque with cognac cream. Maya served it silently, but her ears were tuned to every word. The beauty of this deal, Richard continued, warming to his topic, is that we're not just buying technology, we're buying credibility. Having a former Japanese CEO on our advisory board gives us instant legitimacy in Asian markets. Former CEO, advisory board. Maya's blood went cold. Marcus nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. We get the tech, the patents, the market position. She gets a nice payout and a fancy title that doesn't require much actual work. They were talking about Kimiko like she wasn't sitting 3 feet away, like her life's work was just another asset to be acquired and discarded. Kimiko said something sharp in Japanese, her voice carrying an edge Maya had never heard before. David hesitated before translating. Ms. Hayashi asks about the leadership structure post-acquisition. Well, Richard smiled. Obviously, we'll need to integrate operations under American management. Cultural alignment, you understand. But she'll be well compensated for the transition. Transition. Maya understood the code. They were planning to buy Kimiko's company and push her out. Take everything she'd built and put their own people in charge. Maya felt something burning in her chest. Anger. Recognition. She'd seen this before. Different scale, same game. Take what belongs to others and act like you're doing them a favor. The third course was served in silence that felt heavier with each passing minute. Pan-seared duck breast with cherry gastrique. Maya moved around the table mechanically, but her mind was racing. She thought about her grandmother, who'd cleaned offices for 30 years, watching white executives take credit for ideas that came from their assistants. She thought about her own experiences in job interviews, where her qualifications were questioned despite perfect grades and stellar references. This was bigger, more expensive, but the same damn thing. You know, Marcus said, cutting into his duck, what I love about this deal is how clean it is. No messy negotiations about creative control or operational independence. We write the check, we get the keys. Richard laughed. That's the beauty of working with someone who understands business realities. No emotional attachment to get in the way. Maya saw Kimiko's hand tremble slightly as she reached for her water glass. Just for a moment. Just enough to reveal that under all that composure was a woman watching her life's work being carved up like the duck on their plates. And that's when Maya made a decision that would change everything. She stepped forward from her position by the wall, her heart hammering like gunfire, but her voice steady as steel. Excuse me, she said. Richard looked up, annoyed. Yes? Maya looked directly at Kimiko. Hayashi-san, she said in clear, fluent Japanese. I hope you'll forgive my interruption, but I think there are some things you should know about what these men have been saying. The reaction was immediate and electric. Richard's fork clattered to his plate. Marcus's mouth fell open. David blinked in astonishment. But Kimiko looked at Maya like she'd just seen a miracle. You speak Japanese. Kimiko asked softly, still in Japanese. Yes, Maya replied in the same language, and I've been listening to every word they've said about you when they thought no one who mattered could understand. The silence that followed was deafening. The balance of power in the room had just shifted completely. The invisible black waitress they'd dismissed was about to dismantle their entire world, and Maya Johnson was just getting started. Richard Sterling's face had gone through several shades of red before settling on something approaching purple. What the hell is going on here? Maya didn't even look at him. She kept her eyes on Kimiko, speaking in Japanese. They've been discussing how to remove you from leadership after the acquisition. They called it streamlining operations and cultural alignment. But what they mean is they want your technology without you. Kimiko's composure cracked just slightly. Her eyes flashed with something between anger and pain. You're certain of this? I've been serving in corporate dining rooms for almost a year, Maya replied, still in Japanese. I've learned to hear what people really mean when they think no one important is listening. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. This is completely inappropriate. You can't what? Maya turned to face him for the first time, switching back to English. Can't translate accurately? Can't tell the truth about what you've been saying? You're a waitress, Richard sputtered. You don't belong in this conversation. Neither does racial condescension, Maya shot back. But here we are, the room fell dead silent. The words hung in the air like an accusation that couldn't be taken back. Maya turned back to Kimiko. Hayashi-san, I know I'm overstepping my role here, but I couldn't stand by and watch them dismiss you like this. You deserve to know exactly what kind of people you're dealing with. Kimiko studied Maya for a long moment. When she spoke, it was in English, her accent soft but her words crystal clear. What is your name, Maya Johnson? Maya Johnson, Kimiko repeated as if testing how it felt. Thank you for your courage. David Chen looked between the two women, his professional composure finally cracking. Miss Hayashi, perhaps we should, no. Kimiko said firmly. I want to hear everything. Maya-san, please tell me exactly what they said. Maya felt the weight of the moment. Her job was definitely over. Her dreams of staying invisible until she saved enough for school were shattered. But looking at Kimiko's face, seeing the respect and gratitude there, she knew she couldn't stop now. They called your negotiating style talkative. Maya began as if listening carefully and thinking before speaking was a weakness. They said they were doing you a favor by offering to buy your company. Mr. Webb specifically called it charity. Marcus opened his mouth to protest, but Maya continued relentlessly. They talked about getting credibility from having a former Japanese CEO on their advisory board. Former. They've already planned your exit, Miss Hayashi. They want your technology, your patents, your market position. But they don't want you. Richard found his voice. This is a completely distorted interpretation of a private business discussion. Private, Maya's voice rose slightly. You've been talking about her like she wasn't sitting right there. You've made jokes about her culture, dismissed her intelligence, and planned to steal her life's work. The only thing private about it was that you thought nobody who mattered was listening. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Maya could see her manager hovering anxiously by the door, probably calculating how quickly he could fire her and escort her out. But something extraordinary was happening. Kimiko was standing up. She moved with deliberate grace, walked around the table, and stopped directly in front of Maya. For a moment, Maya thought she might have misread the situation completely. Maybe she just humiliated herself and destroyed any chance Kimiko had of salvaging the deal. Then Kimiko bowed. Not a casual nod, but a deep, formal bow of respect. Maya-san, she said quietly. In my culture, we have a saying, the nail that stands up gets hammered down. But sometimes the nail that stands up holds the whole structure together. She straightened and looked directly at Richard and Marcus. Gentlemen, I believe this meeting is over. Richard's face was a mask of barely controlled fury. Now wait just a minute, we have a deal to discuss. No. Kimiko said, her voice carrying a new authority that filled the room. We have nothing to discuss. Your offer is declined. You're making a huge mistake, Marcus warned. This is the best offer you're going to get. The market won't be this generous again. Kimiko smiled for the first time all evening. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Mr. Webb. I think you've confused generosity with exploitation. But thank you for making your intentions so clear. She turned back to Maya. Do you have plans after work tonight? Maya blinked confused. I probably getting fired, so I guess I'm free. Excellent. I'd like to buy you dinner, somewhere that serves better people than this place. Buy the dinner and somewhere that serves better people than this place. And with that, Kimiko Hayashi collected her coat and walked toward the door. David scrambled to follow, gathering papers and looking shell-shocked. At the threshold, Kimiko paused and looked back at the table where two powerful men sat in stunned silence. Gentlemen, you wanted to know about cultural differences? Here's one. In Japan, we believe respect is earned, not assumed. You failed to earn mine. But Maya-san? She smiled genuinely this time. She has it completely. The door closed behind them with a soft click, leaving Richard and Marcus alone with their expensive food and their shattered deal. Maya stood frozen in the middle of the private dining room, her heart hammering so hard she was sure everyone in Manhattan could hear it. Her manager was already approaching with murder in his eyes. But for the first time in her life, Maya Johnson felt truly seen, truly heard, truly powerful. And this was only the beginning. The elevator ride down felt like falling through space, watching her old life disappear floor by floor. Maya stood next to Kimiko in the polished brass cage, watching the floor numbers drop like her employment status. 47, 46, 45. Each number bringing her closer to reality. She was unemployed, officially. Her manager had made that crystal clear the moment Kimiko left the room. Pack your things and get out, he'd hissed, his face twisted with rage. You just cost us our biggest client and humiliated this establishment in front of Manhattan's elite. You're blacklisted from every fine dining restaurant in Manhattan. Good luck finding work anywhere decent. But standing next to Kimiko in that elevator, Maya felt something dangerous and intoxicating flowing through her veins. Not fear, not regret, pure undiluted power. The quiet, unshakable power that comes from doing the right thing when it matters most. The elevator reached the ground floor with a soft chime. Through the glass doors, Maya could see the snow still falling, transforming Manhattan into a winter wonderland. It should have felt like an ending. Instead, it felt like a beginning. My hotel is 3 blocks away, Kimiko said as they stepped into the lobby. The Meridian. They have an excellent private dining room where we can talk without interruption. Maya pulled her thin jacket tighter. She'd never been inside a hotel like the Meridian. Hell, she'd never been inside any hotel that cost more than $50 a night. Miss Hayashi, you don't need to, Kimiko, she interrupted gently. And yes, I do need to. What you did tonight, that took courage I rarely see in boardrooms full of executives. We need to talk. David Chen was waiting by a sleek black car at the curb, holding an umbrella despite the fact that it was snowing, not raining. He opened the door for them without a word, but Maya caught the small smile on his face. Professional approval mixed with something like admiration. The ride to the Meridian was quiet, except for the soft jazz playing from hidden speakers and the whisper of expensive tires on wet asphalt. Maya stared out the window at the city she'd lived in her whole life, but tonight it looked different, like she was seeing it through new eyes. The Meridian Hotel rose from the Manhattan street like a fortress of old money and quiet power. No flashy signs or gaudy decorations, just clean lines, warm lighting, and the kind of quiet elegance that whispered rather than shouted. The doorman recognized Kimiko immediately, bowing slightly as he held the entrance open. The lobby was all marble and mahogany, with fresh orchids on every surface and a pianist playing softly in the corner. Maya felt wildly out of place in her server's uniform, but Kimiko guided her toward a private elevator with the confidence of someone who belonged everywhere she went. The penthouse has a small dining room, Kimiko explained as they rode up. Much more intimate than that theater we just left. The elevator opened directly into Kimiko's suite, and Maya's breath caught. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Manhattan. The snow was heavier now, wrapping the city in white silk. The furniture was modern but warm, all clean lines and rich textures. Please, sit, Kimiko gestured toward a comfortable chair near the windows. David will order us something to eat, something that doesn't cost more than most people make in a week. Maya sank into the chair, finally allowing herself to process what had just happened. I can't believe I actually did that, she said softly. I can't believe no one had done it before, Kimiko replied, settling into the chair across from her. Maya, can I ask you something? Where did you learn Japanese? Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. Community college. I've been taking classes for 3 years. I I wanted to work in international healthcare. Maybe work abroad someday. Learn about different medical systems. She paused. I know it sounds stupid for someone who serves food for a living. It sounds like someone with vision, Kimiko said firmly. And excellent instincts. You understood exactly what was happening in that room tonight. Not just the language, but the subtext. The power dynamics. The disrespect disguised as business. David appeared with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. I've ordered sushi from Masa, he said quietly. Nothing too elaborate. Maya's eyes widened. Masa was legendary. A single meal there cost more than her monthly rent. Kimiko noticed her expression. David has expensive taste, but excellent judgment. The chef there is a friend. He'll send something appropriate for a real conversation. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the snow fall over the city. Maya felt like she was living in someone else's life. 8 hours ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was having dinner with one of the most powerful women in tech. Maya, Kimiko said finally, what do you know about my company? Neurotech Solutions. You developed AI diagnostic systems that can detect diseases years before symptoms appear. Revolutionary early detection technology. You started the company 12 years ago after your father died of cancer that could have been caught earlier with better screening. Kimiko raised an eyebrow. You've done your research. Maya shrugged. I research all the major clients when they book the private dining room. Knowledge is power, right? Even for waitresses. Especially for waitresses. Kimiko agreed. You see everything, hear everything, but you're invisible to them. It's the perfect position to understand how power really works. The food arrived with quiet efficiency. Beautiful, elegant, perfectly prepared. Maya had never tasted anything like it, but she barely noticed. She was too focused on the conversation. What happened tonight? Kimiko continued. What Sterling and Webb were planning. It's happened before, not to me but to other women. Other foreign executives. They smile. They promise partnership. Then they gut your company and erase your contributions. Maya nodded. I could see it in their faces. The way they talked about you like you weren't there. Like your silence was consent, instead of careful observation. Exactly. Kimiko's voice carried an edge of steel. They mistook patience for weakness. Cultural respect for ignorance. They have no idea what they just lost. What do you mean? Kimiko smiled, and for the first time all evening it looked predatory. Neurotech isn't just successful in Japan. Maya, we have partnerships in 17 countries. Our technology is being implemented in major hospital systems across Europe, South America, and Southeast Asia. We were considering the American market, but we needed the right partner. She paused to sip her wine. Sterling thought he was acquiring a foreign company desperate for American validation. What he was actually being offered was entry into a global network worth more than his entire corporation. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the snow outside. And now? Now he gets nothing. Tomorrow I'll be calling our partners in Germany, Brazil, Singapore. Companies that will be very interested in entering the American market without Valtech's assistance. The implications hit Maya like a freight train. This wasn't just a failed business deal. This was economic warfare, and Kimiko had just declared victory. But that's not why I wanted to have dinner with you, Kimiko continued. Maya, how much do you know about systemic racism in corporate America? The question caught Maya off guard. I know it exists. I've lived it my whole life. Different versions of tonight's dinner, just smaller stakes. Exactly. What happened tonight was textbook. They assumed I was weak because I'm a woman and foreign. They ignored you completely because you're young, black, and working service. They never imagined either of us had the power to stop them. Maya leaned forward. Why are you telling me this? Because I want to offer you a job. The words hung in the air between them. Maya blinked, certain she'd misheard. Not as a waitress, Kimiko clarified quickly, as my new director of cultural integration and strategic communications, based here in New York, overseeing our American expansion. Maya's mouth opened and closed without sound. Finally, she managed, I don't have any experience and you have the only experience that matters, Kimiko interrupted. You understand how power works in this country. You can see through the polite racism and corporate doublespeak. You speak multiple languages, you have healthcare interests, and tonight you proved you have courage. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. Maya, what Sterling and Webb did tonight, it happens every day. To women, to immigrants, to people of color. Companies like theirs have been stealing credit, minimizing contributions, and erasing achievements for decades. I want to change that. How? We're going to build a war machine disguised as a platform for every brilliant mind they've dismissed, every genius they've ignored because of skin color or accent or gender. Neurotech isn't just a medical company anymore. We're going to become a platform for entrepreneurs who've been shut out of traditional networks. Women-owned businesses, immigrant founders, Black and Latino inventors who can't get meetings with venture capitalists. Maya felt her heart racing. This was bigger than she'd imagined. Much bigger. I need someone who understands both sides. Kimiko continued. Someone who's lived the discrimination, but also has the vision to see past it. Someone who can help me identify talent that others overlook and build partnerships with people who share our values. But you're not just anything, Kimiko said firmly. Tonight you stood up to two of the most powerful men in American biotech. You did it knowing it would cost you your job. You did it because it was right. That's not just anything, that's leadership. Maya felt tears threatening to spill. Her grandmother's voice whispered through time, Baby, sometimes God puts you in the fire not to burn you, but to forge you into something stronger than steel. The salary is $120,000 to start, Kimiko added casually. Plus health insurance, education benefits, and equity options. We'll cover your nursing school if that's still something you want to pursue, or medical school, or an MBA, whatever direction interests you. Maya's wine glass slipped from numb fingers, but David caught it smoothly, like he'd been catching the dreams of shocked young women all his life. $120,000. More money than 3 generations of her family had seen combined. Maya's more than her great-grandmother earned in a lifetime of cleaning white folks' houses. Why me? Maya whispered. Because tonight, when it mattered, you chose justice over safety. That's rare, Maya. Rarer than you know. And because I think you and I are going to change how business gets done in this country. Outside, the snow was still falling, but Maya wasn't thinking about the cold anymore. She was thinking about her grandmother, who'd cleaned office buildings for 30 years and never complained. About her parents, who'd worked double shifts to save for her education before the accident took them away. About every time she'd been overlooked, underestimated, or made to feel invisible. When do I start? She asked. Kimiko smiled. Tomorrow, we have work to do. But neither of them could have predicted just how much work lay ahead. Because while they were planning the future in that penthouse suite, Richard Sterling was making phone calls of his own. And he wasn't taking the evening's humiliation quietly. The war was just beginning. And Maya Johnson had just picked her side. At 11:47 p.m., Richard Sterling sat in his Park Avenue apartment, a tumbler of 30-year-old scotch in his hand and his phone pressed to his ear. Outside, the same snow that looked magical from Kimiko's hotel room looked gray and hostile from his window. Tom, I don't care what time it is, he was saying to someone on the other end. This is important. That Oriental bitch humiliated us in front of Manhattan's power elite, and I want her reputation incinerated. Reduced to ash. Tom Morrison ran the most discreet private investigation firm in Manhattan. the kind that specialized in finding dirt that could end careers and destroy reputations. Neurotech Solutions, CEO Kimiko Hayashi, Richard continued. Financial records, personal history, business practices. I want to know if she's ever jaywalked. And Tom, there was a waitress involved. Uppity black girl, early 20s, works at the glass tower. Maya something. I want her career executed so publicly that every server in Manhattan learns what happens when they step out of line. He ended the call and immediately dialed another number. Marcus, it's me. No, I'm not letting this go. That woman embarrassed us in front of our peers. Do you know how fast news travels in our industry? By tomorrow morning, every tech CEO in Silicon Valley will know we got outmaneuvered by a foreigner and a waitress. On the other end, Marcus Webb was pacing his own apartment, equally furious. What do you want to do about it? Damage control. First, we put out the story that we walked away from the deal because of concerns about Neurotech's business practices. Then we make sure Kimiko Hayashi regrets crossing us. And the waitress, Richard's smile was cold. Maya Johnson. According to my contacts at the Glass Tower, she's been terminated. One call to the Restaurant Association, a few words about theft, drug use, unprofessional conduct. That little black bitch will be lucky to get a job cleaning toilets. What Richard didn't know was that Maya no longer needed to work in hospitality. What he didn't know was that Kimiko had anticipated exactly this kind of retaliation. And what he really didn't know was that their conversation was being recorded. Because David Chen hadn't gotten to be Kimiko's right-hand man by being naive about American corporate culture. He'd learned long ago that in business, you always prepared for war, even when you hoped for peace. The recording device in Richard's apartment had been placed there months earlier, during a previous negotiation, standard practice for high-stakes international deals. Legal in New York with proper disclosure, which had been buried in the fine print of documents Richard's lawyers had never bothered to read carefully. By morning, Richard Sterling's threats would be in the hands of employment lawyers, civil rights attorneys, and a very interested reporter from the Wall Street Journal who specialized in corporate discrimination cases. But tonight, Maya Johnson slept peacefully for the first time in months, dreaming of a future she'd never dared to imagine. Tomorrow, she would wake up as an executive at one of the world's most innovative companies. And Kimiko Hayashi sat by her window, watching the snow cover Manhattan like a clean slate, planning the next phase of a revolution disguised as business strategy. The storm was just beginning, but this time they were ready for it. Maya Johnson woke up at 5:47 a.m. to her phone vibrating like it was having a seizure against the marble nightstand. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. The sheets were too soft, the room too quiet. Then it all came flooding back. The dinner, the confrontation. Kimiko's job offer. She was in the guest bedroom of the Meridian Hotel penthouse suite. Yesterday, she'd been a waitress living paycheck to paycheck in a studio apartment in Harlem. Today, she was the director of cultural integration and strategic communications for one of the world's most innovative companies. The phone kept buzzing. 17 missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. 43 text messages. Her social media notifications had exploded overnight. With growing confusion, Maya opened her first text. It was from her friend Jasmine, who worked at another restaurant downtown. Girl, what did you do? You're all over Twitter. Maya's blood went cold. She fumbled with her phone, opening Twitter with shaking fingers. The first thing she saw made her stomach drop. A video, grainy, obviously shot secretly, but clear enough to see everything. Her confronting Richard Sterling and Marcus Webb, her speaking Japanese to Kimiko. The entire explosive moment when she'd stood up to two of the most powerful men in biotech. The caption read, "Brave Black Waitress Exposes Racist Executives." This young woman risked everything to defend a Japanese CEO from corporate discrimination. Thread below, the video had 2.3 million views, and climbing like a rocket ship to Mars. Maya scrolled through the comments, her heart racing faster with each one. This is what real courage looks like. She knew she was getting fired and spoke up anyway. Queen behavior. I'm a black woman in tech, and this literally made me cry. Representation matters. Someone needs to hire this girl immediately. Plot twist, the Japanese woman should offer her a job. If only they knew, Maya thought. There was a soft knock on her door. Maya, Kimiko's voice was gentle but urgent. We need to talk. Maya opened the door to find Kimiko already dressed in an elegant black suit, holding 2 cups of coffee and a tablet. Her expression was serious but not unhappy. I see you've discovered our situation, Kimiko said, handing Maya a coffee. It's gone viral. How did someone get video? Maya asked, accepting the cup gratefully. The dining room was supposed to be private. David's investigating. But honestly, I'm not surprised. In today's world, nothing stays secret for long. Kimiko moved to the window, looking out at the city where the snow had stopped falling but still blanketed everything in pristine white. The question is, how do we handle this? Maya joined her at the window. Are you angry about the publicity? Kimiko turned to her with a slight smile. Maya, this viral explosion just handed us the most powerful weapon in corporate warfare. What do you mean? Look at the response. People are calling you a hero. They're sharing stories about their own experiences with workplace racism. You've started a conversation that needed to happen. Kimiko gestured to the tablet. But more importantly, you've given us something invaluable. What's that? Proof that there are people who will stand up for what's right, even when it costs them everything. That's exactly the kind of person I want to partner with as we expand into America. Maya felt a warmth spreading through her chest. So we're really doing this. The job offer, everything. We're really doing this. In fact, I have a proposition that's even bigger than what we discussed last night. Before Maya could ask what she meant, David Chen appeared in the doorway, looking electrified for such an early hour. Miss Hayashi, you need to see this, he said, holding up his phone. Sterling made a mistake, a big one. Kimiko raised an eyebrow. Show me? David played an audio recording. Richard Sterling's voice was unmistakably clear, dripping with venom. That Oriental bitch humiliated us in front of Manhattan's power elite, and I want her reputation incinerated. Reduced to ash? And Tom? There was a waitress involved. Uppity black girl, early 20s. I want her career executed so publicly that every server in Manhattan learns what happens when they step out of line. Maya felt ice in her veins. He's investigating me? It gets worse, David continued, fast-forwarding to another part of the recording. One call to the restaurant association. A few words about theft, drug use, unprofessional conduct. That little black bitch will be lucky to get a job cleaning toilets. The room went silent. Maya stared at the phone in David's hand, processing what she'd just heard. He's trying to destroy my career, to make sure I can never work again. Not just your career, Kimiko said quietly. He's planning to retaliate against both of us for embarrassing him. This is exactly the kind of behavior we're going to expose. Maya looked between them. How did you get this recording? David smiled for the first time since she'd met him. Let's just say that when you're negotiating international deals worth billions of dollars, you prepare for all contingencies. Mr. Sterling's apartment has been under legal surveillance for months as part of our due diligence process. Is that legal? Completely. New York is a one-party consent state for recordings, and the surveillance was disclosed in the preliminary agreements Sterling signed. Not our fault his lawyers didn't read the fine print carefully. Kimiko moved to her laptop, her fingers flying over the keyboard. David, send that recording to our legal team immediately, and contact Janet Morrison at the Wall Street Journal. She's been investigating discrimination in tech for months. Already done, David replied. She's very interested in the story. Maya felt overwhelmed. This is happening so fast. Yesterday I was invisible, and now you're about to become the face of change in corporate America. Kimiko finished. Maya, I know this is overwhelming, but you have a choice to make. What kind of choice? Kimiko turned from her laptop, her expression intense. You can take the job I offered you last night. Good salary, important work, comfortable life. Or, she paused dramatically, you can help me do something that's never been done before. I'm listening. Not my employee, not my protege, my equal partner in dismantling the system that tried to destroy us both. Chief Operating Officer of Neurotech America. You'd help identify entrepreneurs to support, oversee our diversity initiatives, and represent our values to the world. Maya felt her pulse quicken. What do you mean? We're going to build a war machine, disguised as a platform, for every brilliant mind they've dismissed, every genius they've ignored because of skin color or accent or gender. We're going to use neurotech's resources and global connections to create opportunities for people like you, people who have brilliant ideas but lack access to capital and networks. The scope of what Kimiko was proposing hit Maya like a wave. You're talking about changing the entire system. I'm talking about building a better system alongside the broken one. And I want you to help me lead it. Maya walked to the window again, looking out at Manhattan. Somewhere out there, Richard Sterling was probably making more phone calls, trying to destroy her future. But here, in this room, Kimiko was offering her a chance to build something revolutionary. What would my role be? Chief Operating Officer of Neurotech America. You'd be my partner, not just my employee. You'd help identify entrepreneurs to support, oversee our diversity initiatives, and represent our values to the world. Maya's head spun. COO? Kimiko, 24 hours ago I was invisible, clearing plates and dodging racist comments. Now you want me to run a billion-dollar operation? Experience can be learned, vision can't, courage can't, integrity can't. Kimiko moved closer. Maya, what you did last night wasn't just brave, it was strategic. You saw the power dynamics, understood the implications, and acted decisively. Those are exactly the skills needed to run a company. But what about education, business training? We'll handle that. Harvard Executive Education Program, accelerated MBA if you want it, mentorship from the best business minds in the world. But Maya, you already have something more valuable than any degree. What's that? You understand what it feels like to be underestimated. That perspective is going to help us identify and support brilliant people who've been overlooked by everyone else. Maya felt tears threatening again. Her grandmother's voice whispered through time, "Baby, sometimes God puts you in the fire not to burn you, but to forge you into something stronger than steel." The salary for COO would be $300,000 to start, Kimiko added quietly, plus equity that could be worth millions if we succeed. Maya's legs felt weak. $300,000. More money than 3 generations of her family had seen combined, more than her great-grandmother earned in a lifetime of cleaning white folks' houses. But it won't be easy, Kimiko warned. We're going to face pushback from established players like Sterling. We're going to be criticized for being too political, too focused on social justice. Some people will say we're running a company instead of a charity. What do you say to that? Kimiko smiled fiercely. I say that justice and profit aren't mutually exclusive. I say that diverse teams outperform homogeneous ones. I say that the best ideas often come from people who've been forced to think differently because the world treated them differently. Maya looked out at the city again. Millions of people down there going about their daily lives, most of them never knowing that decisions made in rooms like the one she'd served in last night could change everything. If I say yes, Maya said slowly, what happens next? Next, we hold a press conference. We announce Neurotech America with you as COO. We play Sterling's recording for the world to hear. We show everyone exactly what we're fighting against and what we're building instead. And then we get to work. We start reaching out to entrepreneurs who've been shut out of traditional funding. We begin partnerships with historically Black colleges and universities, women's business organizations, immigrant entrepreneur networks. We build something that's never existed before. Maya closed her eyes, thinking of her parents, her grandmother, every person who'd ever been told they weren't good enough, smart enough, connected enough to succeed. In 4 hours, you'll be facing 50 cameras and rewriting the rules of corporate America forever, Kimiko continued. Maya thought about the video that was spreading across social media, about Richard Sterling's threats, about the recording that would expose his corruption, about the choice between safety and revolution. Okay, she said finally, let's do it. Kimiko's face lit up with genuine joy. Really? Really? But I have one condition. Name it. I want to call my grandmother first. She deserves to hear this from me before she sees it on the news. Of course. David, can you arrange for car service to bring Mrs. Johnson here? I'd like to meet the woman who raised such an extraordinary granddaughter. Maya felt her heart swell. You want to meet my grandmother? Maya, family is everything. If we're going to be partners, then our families are connected too. Besides, I have a feeling your grandmother and I are going to get along very well. As David left to make arrangements, Maya pulled out her phone to call her grandmother. Outside, Manhattan was waking up to a new day. Somewhere in the city, Richard Sterling was learning that his private conversations weren't as private as he'd thought. Somewhere else, journalists were preparing questions about corporate discrimination and systemic racism. But in this penthouse suite, two women from very different worlds were about to change how business gets done in America. Maya dialed her grandmother's number, her hands trembling slightly with excitement and terror. "Grandma, it's Maya. I have something incredible to tell you." The revolution was beginning, and a girl from Harlem who'd been invisible her whole life was about to become the face that changed everything. The Meridian Hotel's conference room crackled with predatory energy at 2 p.m. sharp. 50 journalists, smelling blood in the water. Cameras from CNN, NBC, Fox Business, and a dozen other networks pointed toward the small stage where two empty chairs waited. Reporters clutched notebooks and phones, sensing they were about to witness something historic. Maya stood behind the curtain, her heart hammering against her ribs. The stylist Kimiko had hired had transformed her into someone she barely recognized. A sharp navy blazer tailored perfectly, elegant heels that made her feel powerful instead of uncomfortable, hair and makeup that enhanced rather than masked her natural beauty. But underneath the armor of success, her heart still carried every scar from a lifetime of being dismissed, ignored, erased. "You ready?" Kimiko appeared beside her, equally polished in a charcoal gray suit that screamed executive authority. "I don't think anyone's ever ready for something like this," Maya admitted. "Good. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried." Kimiko squeezed her shoulder gently. "Remember, we're not just announcing a business partnership today. We're drawing a line in the sand. We're saying that discrimination has consequences and courage has rewards." David Chen approached with a tablet. The Wall Street Journal article just went live. Janet Morrison didn't hold back. He showed them the headline, "Secret Recordings Expose Tech CEO's Racist Retaliation Plot." Below it, a photo of Richard Sterling at a previous conference, smiling his practiced corporate smile. The article detailed everything: his threats against Maya, his plans to destroy her career, his attempt to blacklist her from the hospitality industry. "How's he responding?" Kimiko asked. "Radio silence so far. His PR team is probably in full crisis mode." Maya scanned the article quickly. Seeing her own story in the Wall Street Journal felt surreal. 24 hours ago, she'd been invisible. Now she was front-page news. "Ladies, it's time," David announced. They walked onto the stage to a barrage of camera flashes. Maya had never experienced anything like it. The lights were blinding, the sound overwhelming. She found herself grateful for Kimiko's calm presence beside her. Kimiko stepped to the microphone first. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice. Yesterday evening, Neurotech Solutions was presented with an acquisition offer from Valtech Industries. During that meeting, we witnessed the ugly, rotting heart of corporate America: racism disguised as business, discrimination wrapped in smiles." She gestured to Maya. "This is Maya Johnson. Yesterday, she was a waitress at the Glass Tower restaurant. Today, she is the Chief Operating Officer of Neurotech America, our new subsidiary focused on supporting underrepresented entrepreneurs." The room erupted with questions, but Kimiko held up her hand. "Before we take questions, I want you to hear something. These recordings were legally obtained as part of our due diligence process." The speakers crackled to life with Richard Sterling's voice. About to destroy his entire empire with his own words, "That Oriental bitch humiliated us in front of Manhattan's power elite, and I want her reputation incinerated, reduced to ash." Then came the threats against Maya. One call to the Restaurant Association, a few words about theft, drug use, unprofessional conduct. "That little black bitch will be lucky to get a job cleaning toilets." The room fell silent, except for the whir of cameras. Maya watched reporters' faces change as they processed what they'd heard. This wasn't just corporate discrimination. This was retaliation, conspiracy, abuse of power. Questions? Kimiko asked calmly. Hands shot up everywhere. The first reporter, a sharp-eyed woman from CNN, stood. Johnson, how do you respond to people who might say you were out of line, speaking up during a private business meeting? Maya leaned toward the microphone, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I'd say that silence in the face of injustice isn't neutrality. It's choosing the side of the oppressor. When I heard those men dismissing Miss Hayashi's intelligence, mocking her culture, and planning to steal her life's work, I had two choices: stay invisible and safe, or speak up and risk everything. She paused, looking directly into the camera. My grandmother, who cleaned offices for 30 years while brilliant men took credit for women's ideas, taught me that dignity isn't negotiable. Not for me, not for anyone. The next question came from Fox Business. Hayashi, critics might say this is a publicity stunt, hiring someone with no business experience as COO of a major corporation. Kimiko's smile was razor sharp. Maya Johnson identified a complex pattern of racial and cultural discrimination, exposed a multi-million-dollar fraud attempt, and demonstrated strategic thinking under pressure. Those are exactly the qualities I want in my business partner. Business partner? The reporter pressed. Yes. Maya isn't just an employee, she's an equity partner in Neurotech America. We're building something revolutionary together. More hands, more questions. Maya found her rhythm, her voice growing stronger with each answer. She talked about systemic barriers in corporate America, about the importance of diverse perspectives in leadership, about her vision for supporting entrepreneurs who'd been shut out of traditional networks. Then came the question that changed everything. Miss Johnson, what do you say to young Black women watching this who feel like their voices don't matter? Maya looked directly into the camera, thinking of every girl like her who'd ever been told to stay quiet, stay small, stay invisible. Your voice is a weapon they fear. Your perspective is power they can't control. Your courage is the flame that burns down their house of lies. I was just a waitress yesterday, but I was never just anything. None of us are. We all have power we don't recognize until the moment comes to use it. Her voice grew stronger. To every young woman of color watching this, they're going to underestimate you. They're going to dismiss you. They're going to act like you're invisible. Use that, watch everything. Learn everything. And when your moment comes, and it will come, be ready to change the world. The room was dead silent. Then slowly applause began. Not the polite clapping of a press conference, but genuine, sustained applause that grew until the entire room was on its feet. Maya felt tears threatening, but she held them back. This wasn't the time to cry. This was the time to claim her power. The questions continued for another hour. They asked about Neurotech's expansion plans, about the entrepreneurs they hoped to support, about the legal implications of Sterling's threats. Maya and Kimiko answered as a team, their partnership already evident. As the press conference ended, Maya's phone exploded with notifications. Job offers from major corporations, interview requests from every major network, speaking invitations from universities and conferences. But the message that meant the most came from her grandmother. Baby, I watched every minute. Your parents would be so proud. You didn't just speak up for yourself. You spoke up for all of us. I love you. 6 months later, Maya stood in the gleaming offices of Neurotech America, looking out at Manhattan from the 45th floor of their new headquarters. The company had funded 17 startups, led by women and minorities. Their first product launch had exceeded projections by 300%. Maya had been featured on the cover of Fortune magazine as one of the 40 under 40 leaders changing business. Richard Sterling had been stripped of everything but his company, his reputation, his legacy turned to ash by the recording of his own poisonous words after a federal investigation into his company's discriminatory practices. Marcus Webb had been fired and was facing criminal charges for corporate espionage. But Maya's favorite moment hadn't been the Fortune cover or the standing ovations. It had been the day her grandmother visited the office and saw her baby girl commanding a room full of executives who hung on her every word, looked around at everything Maya had built, and said simply, You did good, baby. You did real good. That night at the Glass Tower restaurant, when Maya had made the choice to speak up instead of staying silent, she'd thought she was just defending one woman's dignity. She hadn't realized she was starting a revolution, but that's how revolutions begin. Not with manifestos or master plans, with one ordinary person saying enough in a moment when everything hangs in the balance. Maya Johnson had been invisible, once dismissed, ignored, treated like furniture in rooms where her destiny was decided. But she would never bow her head again, never apologize for taking up space, never let anyone mistake her silence for surrender. The quiet ones who served their food, the overlooked ones who cleaned their buildings, the underestimated ones who made their world run while remaining invisible, their time had come. And Maya Johnson was leading the revolution. Real power doesn't announce itself with Armani suits. Sometimes it speaks with a server's quiet voice, and sometimes the people you underestimate most are the ones who change the game entirely.